Almost everything you picture when you hear the word Viking is wrong, starting with the hat. The version they taught you was the marketing. This is the invoice. Here is what it was actually like to be a Viking. 7 truths your history class skipped, and the last one was written down by a horrified Arab diplomat who watched it happen with his own eyes. Let us start with the hat, because the amateur historians in the comments are already right. No Viking warrior ever wore a horned helmet into battle. Not one. Only a single, almost complete Viking Age helmet has ever been dug up, the Germanbu helmet from Norway, and it is a plain rounded iron cap with no horns anywhere on it. Horns on a helmet in a real fight are a gift to your enemy, something to grab and twist. So where did the image come from? From an opera. In the year 1876, a costume designer named Carl Emil Doppler stuck horns on the helmets for a staging of Wagner's Ring Cycle, and within a generation, the horned Viking was printed on everything.
There are horned helmets in Scandinavia, but they are ceremonial pieces from the Bronze Age, made for ritual roughly 1,000 years before the first Viking ever set sail. You have been picturing a 19th century opera costume this whole time.
Truth 2. The Vikings were clean, disturbingly clean, by the standards of the time. The Old Norse word for Saturday was laugardagar, which literally means washing day, and that word still survives in the Scandinavian languages today. They bathed about once a week, when most of Europe considered bathing suspicious, and archaeologists keep pulling combs, tweezers, razors, and ear cleaners out of Viking sites by the hundreds. An English writer named John of Wallingford complained bitterly that the Danes combed their hair every day, bathed every Saturday, and changed their clothes often, and that because of all this grooming, they seduced the daughters of noblemen and lured married women away from their husbands. The barbarians, it turned out, smelled better than the locals.
Truth 3. What they actually ate, and it is almost nothing you would recognize. A Viking ate twice a day, no more. The first meal was called the dagmal, the day meal, taken about an hour after waking, and it was usually last night's cold stew with a hunk of bread. The second was the nattmal, the night meal, at the end of the working day. The bread was a dense flat disk of barley or rye cooked on a hot stone. They ate a soft sour cheese called skyr that is still sold in supermarkets today. They drank ale and, for celebrations, honey mead. And for most families, meat was a luxury saved for feasts, not a daily plate. And here is the part that breaks people. There were no potatoes, no tomatoes, no sugar, no carrots as you know them. All of that arrives in Scandinavia centuries later.
The everyday Viking table was porridge, dairy, dried fish, and whatever the farm could grow. Truth 4. These raiders, with no single all-powerful king, ran one of the most sophisticated legal systems in Europe. Disputes were taken to an open-air assembly called the Thing, and the Icelandic version, the Althing, was founded around the year 930, making it one of the oldest parliaments on Earth. Killing a man was not some unspeakable crime. It had a price list. You paid the victim's family a set fee called the werdild, the man price, and the amount depended entirely on how important the dead man was. This was a world with almost no written law, so in Iceland, a single elected official called the law speaker was expected to hold the entire legal code in his head and recite a third of it aloud from memory each year at the assembly.
If 2 men hated each other, they could even settle it legally with a formal duel called the holmgang. But the punishment everyone truly feared was not execution. It was being made an outlaw. An outlaw was placed outside the law completely. No one could feed you, shelter you, or help you, and anyone at all could kill you on sight with no penalty. Exile was a slow death sentence.
Truth 5. And this one rewrites the whole picture. A Viking woman could divorce her husband, and she carried the keys. The married woman ran the household. She was called the husfrøya, the lady of the house, and the keys hanging at her belt were the literal symbol of her control over the family's food, money, and resources.
She could own property, she could inherit it, and she could file for divorce entirely on her own decision, walking away with her dowry and half of everything the couple owned. An Arab traveler visiting the town of Hadeby was stunned to learn that a woman could leave her marriage whenever she wanted, and the grounds were real.
If a husband hit his wife 3 times, she could demand a divorce and take half his wealth out the door with her, at a time when women almost everywhere else in Europe had no such right at all. Truth 6 is the part the movies leave out, because it is ugly. A huge share of Viking wealth was built on human beings. The Norse word for a slave was thrall, and captured people were one of the most valuable things the Vikings traded. Every raid was also a slaving raid. The captives were marched to great markets at Hedeby, at Birka, and at Dublin, which held one of the largest slave markets in all of Europe, and then sold east along the rivers of Russia to Muslim merchants in exchange for silk and silver. A thrall had almost no rights at all, could be bought, sold, or given away, and the children of a thrall were born into bondage too.
Those beautiful hoards of Arab silver coins that keep turning up buried across Sweden and the island of Gotland are not really the treasure of bold adventurers. They are the receipts of a slave trade. The Viking Golden Age was paid for in people.
And Truth 7, the one an outsider wrote down in horror. In the year 922, an Arab diplomat named Ahmad ibn Fadlan was traveling along the Volga River when he watched a Viking chieftain's funeral. And his account is one of the most disturbing eyewitness records to survive from the entire Viking Age. The dead chief was placed in a ship, surrounded by his weapons, by food, and by animals that were killed and laid beside him, dogs, horses, and cattle. Then his people asked which of his slave women would choose to die and go with him. One young woman volunteered, and once she said yes, there was no way back. On the day of the burning, she was lifted up over the ship 3 times, given strong drink, and led into the tent where her dead master lay.
Waiting for her inside was an old woman the Norse called the Angel of Death. As men beat their shields to drown out the sound, the Angel of Death wrapped a cord around the girl's neck and drove a knife between her ribs. Then they set the whole ship on fire, and by the next day there was nothing left but ash and a mound of cold earth.
So that was what it was actually like to be a Viking. Cleaner than the people they raided, ruled by parliaments instead of kings, giving their women rights the rest of Europe would not grant for 1,000 years, and paying for all of it with a brutal trade in human lives that ended, sometimes, on a burning ship. The horned helmet was the marketing. This was the invoice. Which one of these should Chronica open up and cover in full? The slave markets, the women who ruled the home, or the funeral on the Volga? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe, because every answer you leave becomes the next video.